First of all, I'd like to express to you all that I'm extremely overwhelmed and humbled to be part of this magnificent panel. And I'm even more grateful that with each speaker that has stood up before you today, they've all sort of neatly lined up each of the foundational blocks for the story that I want to convey to you all today. So what we've heard today in the first segment of this afternoon's TEDx talk are incredible stories about personal resilience, mental and physical resilience, about passion, creativity, innovation, drive, being an outlier. And these stories just inspire and give us a taste of just a glimpse of the full breadth of human possibilities. As a species, we continue to outdo ourselves, and we undermine or underestimate our own capacity as human beings in terms of what is achievable for all of us. And the TED series is particularly special because it represents something else, something unique. It tells us, it showcases, and it celebrates that extraordinary capacities to do big things lie in ordinary people. So extraordinary, it celebrates the extraordinary capacity of ordinary people to achieve amazing things. What makes them extraordinary is not that the fact that they're doing different things, but that they're doing things differently. Many of us sitting in this room can remember, some of us perhaps more clearly than others, the time when we were growing up and we had big dreams. And as Mr. Naidu said, some of us, when we were growing, we said we want to be pilots and doctors and engineers and lawyers. Others of us wanted to be famous, perhaps a musician, an actor, a singer. And yet others aspired to be world leaders, pioneers in our field. Yet today, we recognize that many of these dreams we have abandoned somewhere along the way. Sometimes it's because somebody told us that those dreams are too big for us. They're out of your reach. You cannot be a pilot, right? Or sometimes our parents say to us that it's fine if you want to be a singer on the side, but it doesn't provide a stable source of income. Get a real job. And so we learn through the force of culture and its pervasiveness in our everyday lives what we should do, what we should want to do. And we try to conform to that which is typically expected of us. And this is a phenomena, as we've seen, has been recurrent as a theme throughout today's talks. It's all too familiar. And as we struggle to hold on to these dreams that we had when we were little, we try to salvage whatever aspects of them that we can. We might join the university band. We might, engage in a bit of drama here and there. We encounter multiple challenges as we try to pursue a dream or a path that someone else has carved out for us. For fear of disappointing those around us, we step up to numerous challenges. We seem overcome by this responsibility that we feel we have to manage respectfully the delicate task of negotiating our dreams with those around us, because we persistently feel that they are judging us. They're evaluating our success in life, whether we've made it, based on whether we have conformed to the dreams that they've set out for us. And in that process, we engage in a constant cost-benefit analysis to evaluate the consequences of our infractions against culture. So the first question to ask ourselves today is, how often do we engage ourselves in this cost-benefit analysis, in the pursuit of our dreams? And to say to yourself today, let it go. You cannot quantify, you cannot calculate every cost that you incur in life. As young people still figuring out what we want to do with our lives, we begin to allow other people and their expectations of us and societal norms to slowly chip away at our dreams. And we learn to do certain things and become certain things. And at this point, I want to complicate the picture just slightly, a little bit, by suggesting to you that the journey is somewhat more complex for a woman who has her own dreams, and she has additional obstacles, perhaps, that stand in the way of her passions. The choices between family and professional life are persistently juxtaposed against each other as though you can either have one or the other. If you're very good at work, then you cannot be a good family woman, all right? Or if you're very devoted to your work, then you clearly aren't committed to your family. These challenges are exacerbated even further when we try to break tradition, to do things that aren't customarily accepted as suitable for women. Throw into this mix and a minority status, being a particular ethnic minority woman of a particular cultural background or having religious obligations, and you have a unique cultural context which informs your everyday decision. Who you speak to, what work you do, what environment you surround yourself with, the kinds of activities you can participate in, what you wear, how professional you can look. And all of these operate as constraints around us. And you have there alone the story of a perfect female protagonist in a film where she seems set to sort of achieve her dreams against all odds, and she's pitted against the universe. So the question is, does this woman, or does this person, manage to break free of these cultural expectations that are imposed on her, that she's learned and acquired over the years? Or does she have to sacrifice these in the face of culture? So today, I'd like to invite you all to take a journey back with me into my world growing up as an ethnic minority girl in Hong Kong. I come from a family of humble beginnings, a very loving family where my parents worked very, very hard to provide my brother and I with a comfortable and secure environment in which we developed a strong sense of commitment to our own personal and moral values. I was never made to feel that there was any difference between my brother and I. But as we grew up and we went to school and participated in activities, I started to notice that there were some subtle resistances that I was encountering in terms of things that I wanted to do, which were more readily embraced if my brother wanted to do them. So I'll just share with you, to humor you a little bit. I would participate in the hockey team or the netball team, or I'd sign up for debate and drama. And I remember coming home one afternoon and telling my father that I played particularly well on the hockey field today. And he sort of looked at me, but he seemed puzzled because he didn't believe that women were playing hockey. He, second of all, undermined the reality of what I just conveyed to him, that I had actually played well. So he said to me in jest, "Are you sure you were doing something substantial on the field? You weren't just hanging around?" And that hurt. The fact that he couldn't conceive of me as a sporty person or as an athletic person. And this impacted my own interest in sports going forward. I then started to withdraw from activities that I considered were not feminine enough for me, because that's the message I got at home. Those are the ideas that were reinforced. Thinking back, of course, I think it's more obvious to me that for a person of his own background and upbringing, it was probably preposterous to find a female in a field of, and playing hockey and playing it well. It was just simply not a part of the world that he had grown up in. Another poignant memory that comes to mind is a day that I announced at home that there was a parent-teacher meeting to discuss subjects that I was going to take for my GCSE, so that's your grade 10 and grade 11. And my dad said, "What? What is the need for that? You're not going to pursue your education after grade 9? And I was shocked, visibly distraught. And I said, "Why? I like to study." I was one of those, right? I'm good at what I do. Why can't I pursue grade 10 and 11 like every other person? That's the normal thing to do. And that's when it occurred to me that for my dad, he had never envisaged any other life plan for me. Because in the world that he came from, the usual thing to do by the time that your own daughter was closing in on 14, 15 was to educate her in her household responsibilities and prepare her for the bigger sort of profession in her life, which would be to be a housewife, right? So that's when I was first challenged. And I decided that despite the cultural expectation that I accept the decision that had just been handed down to me, I decided that I was still going to try to see if I could buy a couple of years. I mean, it doesn't hurt to ask, right? So that's when I entered into my first negotiation about my future with my father. And I said to him, look, let me offer you this. You want me to learn how to cook, clean, manage household duties? I will do all of that. In exchange, you let me go ahead with grade 10 and 11. He was sold. He couldn't see the downside to that. He thought that's fine. And so I had bought myself 2 years of further education. In hindsight, I'm probably wearing my lawyer hat, not a very good bargain, right? I should probably have asked for much more. I wonder, of course, looking back now, whether he was serious or simply testing my resolve to ensure that I was making full use of the opportunities that we were being given in Hong Kong, that I was serious about what I wanted to pursue, and that I knew. But as a young teenager, I can tell you, the prospect of losing access to higher education had a profoundly life-changing impact on me. I began to work very, very hard to make full use of every opportunity that I got at school. I realized that the same question was going to come up again probably when I wanted to do my A-level studies, right? And so I thought, what could I have under my belt that would make my parents' case less persuasive in terms of turning me off of education and going down the route where you start meeting people and prospective grooms and things like that. And so I thought that if I worked very hard at school and did very well, that would make a compelling case to allow me to pursue what I wanted to do. And to be very, very fair to my parents, they were very proud. They rewarded me for my successes at school. And so there was no question when it came to doing my A-levels that that is something that I should be able to do because I had earned it. The question at that point, however, was complicated not so much by what I was going to do for the next couple of years of my life, but more about what subjects was I choosing. And this was when I dropped the next bomb. And this is interesting because what we've been talking about this afternoon is how, Asian parents want to tell their kids to be lawyers and doctors and engineers. And I announced to my parents and I said, I'm going to do subjects that will help direct me into the field of law. And my dad sort of paused and he was shocked and said, what, lawyer? Why would you want to take law? That's not a fitting profession for a woman. Everyone is going to think that you're argumentative and aggressive and stubborn. How am I ever going to get you married off, right? And so with all those characteristics that made me clearly a very hard sell, he saw this profession as being something that would serve up as an obstacle. So it's quite ironical, right? He said, why can't you have some normal dreams, right? Whereas everybody, all the students that I have now, their parents want them to be lawyers and things like that, whereas I didn't quite get the same kind of reception that I was hoping for. Anyhow, to be fair to him also, in our community, although we live in Hong Kong and we have several others, other Indian and other South Asian families in Hong Kong, he was true to the T when he said that this is how I would be judged. And so in the formative years when I was practicing law, I was labeled as somebody who was too ambitious, too aggressive, and probably not wife material. So I had been branded, as often happens. At the back of my mind, however, this marriage speak that was dominating these life-changing decisions for me was starting to trouble me. So I sought counsel from my mother, and I said, is Dad really serious, or is he just egging me on? Is there some substance to this? I mean, we're living in Hong Kong. Does he really have plans to have me married off somewhere? She smiled and shared with me that when she was 15, she had won a territory-wide prize for topping the school in her village. And she, however, wasn't able to attend the prize ceremony to receive her prize because at that moment she was being whisked off to Delhi to be engaged and married to my father, whom she had never seen before. This is when she was 15. And so she said to me that that was the end of school for her, no matter how well she had performed. But that was back then. And so she shared with me that this is not the life that she wanted for me. She wanted me to go as far as I wanted. She wanted me to pursue my dreams unburdened by culture. She understood me. So with that wind beneath my wings, I went back to my dad and I said, look, I'm going to opt for these courses for my A-levels, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to pursue law. We can talk about it when the time comes. And of course, I definitely didn't pass up on the opportunity to tell him that I was not worried about losing the prospects of a proposal from somebody who was threatened by a female lawyer or professional, right? So I made that clear as well. It was not a big loss. It would be all right. And as I prepared myself then for university applications, I spared no efforts to apply far and wide. I dreamed big. And my brother had just secured entry into a very well-respected college in London, and I felt that it would probably comfort my parents if I joined him somewhere in the same city. And so I thought they would be very, very proud, and so I set about doing my applications and applied to the top law schools in the UK. I waited until I got a few acceptances, and then I broke the news. I got into such and such law school. Aren't you so proud of me? And my dad says, now that is a problem, because you're not going abroad to study because it's not financially feasible for us to support both children. And so, of course, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, nobody told me about this. Had I known, I would have applied locally. But at this point, I was so driven by my desire to pursue what I had worked so hard for and deserved. I felt I deserved. I felt that I earned. And so I wasn't going to let this get in the way of my doing what I wanted. I would take it in whatever form it appeared before me. And so I applied to local universities. And as I was saying to your president over lunch, I even applied to Hong Kong UST, even though you don't have a law program. That's how badly I wanted to go to university to get a degree. Any degree would have done at that point. Of course, I also had other suspicions that by now the battleground had shifted. It was no longer about whether I was going to be educated, but now it was about how do we keep her home or close to quarters, rather than having her spend time abroad for 3 or 4 years. It didn't disturb me, however, because what I saw was that as I continued to focus on my goal and keep trying to find ways to achieve what I wanted, things started to fall into place. So within my first month at Hong Kong University, I learned that there was a study abroad program where I could get a scholarship and actually stay in a particular university in England for a year to pursue part of my law degree. And what did I do? I came home the day the scheme was announced. I filled out the papers, sent in the paperwork, got my referees, submitted my application, and I knew that, if it's meant to be, it'll turn up and it'll work out. Meanwhile, there were debating competitions, and we had the opportunity to sign up to represent Hong Kong University at the World University Debating Championships in Athens, Greece. My first foray out of the home on my own. I took it up. I went home and I announced, I'm going to Greece. My dad said, well, where's the money? It's all funded, you don't have to worry. And so he felt that this was probably, a convenient concession to make in light of the big pass-up that we just had with my not going to the university in England, and he happily obliged. My first trip away from home, I was elated, exhilarated. I felt free because I felt I was out there for myself, representing what I wanted to do, what I was good at. I was achieving. What I wanted was important. When I came back from this memorable trip, I found in my letterbox an acceptance letter for the scholarship and the admission to the school in the UK for the year-long exchange program. And so what did I do? I walked into my parents' bedroom and said to my father, Father, I have news for you. I've just been accepted to go to university for a year, and you don't have to pay anything. And that was when I learned that it wasn't necessarily the finances that held him back. He had other reservations about letting me go. But again, to be fair to a very loving man, he said to me that fate has defeated me this time. Things have conspired in a way to make it all fall into place that I feel like I do not have a valid reason to object. You have the funding, you've earned it. What possible objection could I have? And so how could there be anything bad about this particular outcome? He might have seen this as a defeat at the hands of fate. I, on the other hand, saw this as a victory in a very different light. I saw that with patience and trying to bring my parents on board my decisions, I was able not only not alienate them, but I was able to have them respect what I had done. respect what I wanted for myself, and then finally come on board. I felt that I had earned a little bit of cultural capital as well, so that my parents saw me as a wise teenager who was mature and not purely driven by emotion and sentiment in wanting what I wanted. And so I felt that the ground at home was beginning to shift. We were experiencing a cultural shift at home. I was scared and worried when I first left home. Of course, I'd touted my high horse and said that, I won't change if I went abroad. I will stay true to my cultural roots. I will come back and, still be your lovely little girl who's obedient and all of that. But of course, nobody can predict how things are going to change me. And so we also cannot predict the costs of that change. But one thing that I do know is with every step I took after that, I only grew closer to my parents. And they understand me and accept me in a way that is so deeply motivating. And they're on board every journey that I set foot on today. And that is invaluable to me, because for all of our achievements, small and big, they only really mean anything, if we're honest with ourselves. They only really mean anything when those who love us are on board with us, are on the same page as us. And today I have conversations with men at our dinner table, at home, and we're talking about things that I'm working on. We're talking about gender-based violence. We're talking about the imposition of culture and patriarchy and its subtle forms and the way it sort of creeps into people's dreams and robs them from the ability to pursue their passions. So what I want to leave you all with are a few snippets of things to work on for yourself so that you can reclaim your own dream. The first is, don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to push boundaries. After all, if we want change, how can we expect it if we ourselves are afraid to be the first to refuse to take part in the perpetuation of the patriarchy that we are seeking to break free from? The second is that in this part of the world, we only know too well the challenges of honor, face, and due respect for our elders. Our default tendency is to be conformist. But I urge you all, and I challenge you all, be a freak, be an outlier. It's fun, especially when you go after what you so want, and then you achieve it. You notice that everybody lines up right behind you. It's difficult initially, it's lonely, but that's why, as Rob said, it's important to ask for help. It's a lonely journey, and therefore you need to find like-minded people to inspire you. Don't engage in a lose-lose. Many a time you'll find that there are people who would have said to you, you should do this. And 20 years later, when you show them, I have done this, they will say, I didn't ask you to. That's a lose-lose. Be a winner. Claim your dream and go for it. You might temporarily alienate people, but eventually they will respect you for what you achieve. Fourth, it's vital to recognize that our loved ones come from a very, very good-hearted space. They want deeply for us to succeed. Their resistance is about the fear of uncertainty. Our parents don't know. Some of them have not seen the world that we are a part of today. Show them. Take them along on this journey of change with you. Don't expect them to come on board if you're not giving them enough information. Fifth, be wary of those people who love you, but who overbear in the form of blackmail. People around us are persistently telling us, well, if you choose this, and I'm telling you not to, clearly you don't love me enough. You love your work more, or you love your passion more than you love me. Love is something that is infinite. There is ample capacity for love to absorb all of the things that are dear to you. Share these values with your loved one and tell them it's not an either-or. Those of us who love us test our limits. They want us to know that they want to know that we're serious about what we're doing. And so they will ask us questions. Be wary of your own complicity in accepting what someone hasn't even asked you to do, but because you think that's what the expectation is. Break free. How do we know whether we will be taken seriously if we break a cultural norm? Try it. As Gandhi said, at first, they'll ignore you. Then they will laugh at you. Then they will fight you. And in the end, you win. We cannot be what we cannot see, but at the same time, we cannot wait for role models to come along. You need to be the role model. So am I saying that I have arrived and that I have successfully managed to effect a paradigm shift in my life, and everything is all hunky-dory in terms of a cultural context and conflict. No, this is a long road, and the battles continue. We have to be as resilient as the battles of culture around us. We must step back, though, and evaluate critically what are the bases for our decision. Are we allowing culture to drive us? If that's the case, be more objective. Let yourself stand apart for a moment and decide for yourself. Make the choice. Own your dreams. To the women out there, I would sound the alarm even louder. People are always telling us that we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't want this. Reject all such discourse. We give in too easily, and oftentimes we don't even put up a fight. It's time to take a stand. And for those of us, each time that we encounter this patriarchal monster, I would say question, challenge, and resist. We can only hope for long-lasting change if we channelize our efforts towards applying them moment by moment to those who stand up in the form of different patriarchal norms. For me, perhaps my father characterized a person who I wanted to please and somebody who I respected, and therefore I felt that by obeying him and agreeing with him, I was displaying my respect. But today, I recognize that he has a deeper respect for me because I challenged him. And I brought him on board, and I showed him that there is a different world out there, and I have a voice. I wanted to fight for justice. I became a lawyer. I wanted to do more. It wasn't enough. So I became a teacher. And I found that yet insufficient. And so I started Speak for Humanity, a platform for students like yourself who want to be part of meaningful change. I was discouraged by numerous people, but hundreds and hundreds of people came out to join the revolution, and they wanted all to speak for humanity. I thought I was on my own, but I found a different and more empowered voice in me, and I continue. Tonight, I'm flying out to Geneva to speak before the Human Rights Committee to tell them that ethnic minority children in Hong Kong need a better education system. They need to know their rights and have equal access to education. What I want to leave you with is that this is not just my story. Actually, it's a story of each of us. Each of us is striving to do something. Each of us are marginalized by some circumstance or the other. The stories we've heard today share a common thread. They tell us that we need to be bold. We need to dare to dream and be honest with who we are. We need to ask, why must things always be the way why must things only be the way they have always been? Why can't they change? Take risks, take chances, be dedicated, propel forward, achieve anything you put your minds to. And the most beautiful and empowering takeaway from each of the stories we've heard, and I'm sure we're going to hear in the remaining segment, is that we are actually all heroes in our own lives. You just need to discover your own superpower and then let go. Thank you.